Hey everybody, I'm here to talk about the new Good Kid EP, which I'm super excited for. Good Kid was my #1 artist in 2022, my #2 artist in 2023, and they're on good pace to stay at the top of the podium. This was a really exciting EP for me to see released. It's 6 tracks long, 4 of which were already singles, and 2 of which are brand new songs to the public. So I just want to get into, before I start with the actual album, a lot of why I really like Good Kid in the first place. I think that a lot of people's criticisms of the indie genre come down to that at the end of the day, all of it sounds the same. But where I think that Good Kid really shines is that they have done what I think is one of the most difficult things in music, which is to really establish a unique sound that stands out from everybody else working in your area. And Good Kid does exactly that. I hear a Good Kid riff and I know that it's a Good Kid song. They have a more specific style that still fits into the genre, but I think is really beautiful. I think that they're really bright, they're really upbeat, energetic, and the vocals, the bass, the percussion, the guitar all work together to create a sound that always just makes me happy when I hear them. So that's kind of why I like Good Kid in general, but getting into the EP, our first song is Bubbly, which, contradictory to the name, it's a little bit more of a darker song compared to a lot of the other Good Kid tracks. It talks a lot about how, what my interpretation is how tough it can be to be on tour and how tough it can be to be working really hard day in and day out. And you feel kind of overwhelmed by the work that you have built up around you. And I think that this is a really interesting addition to Good Kid's discography because a lot of their songs, as I said earlier, were very upbeat and energetic. And so hearing something that's a little bit more vulnerable and something that goes into some of the darker side, potentially, of being a musician is a really interesting add. And the second song on the album, I totally love. It's a cover of Leve's From the Start. So Leve's From the Start, obviously a huge song, blew up. It probably has north of a couple 100 million streams on Spotify. And following suit, it's Good Kid's most streamed song to date, which I think it's at about 32 million. And it's just a really interesting take on the song. Whereas From the Start by Leve is more of a slower acoustic love song, Good Kid puts a really good indie rock spin on it, making it a much faster song, giving it upbeat percussion, and I think giving a new life to the song that made it really interesting to me. And going on down the list, Summer was a really good song musically and lyrically. I think that it really does a lot of good to the album in general, being placed right in the middle. Because I think that the themes of that song carry over from Bubbly in some of the more difficulties of being in the music business, but it's still a little bit of a brighter take. I think that the song does really good, and it's one of the few that I added to my playlist. And the fourth track is my absolute favorite from the album. It's Break. And what's really interesting about this one is that you get more of a genre switch from Good Kid here. You can see a lot of influence from Midwest emo artists, as this song is the fastest on the album by a lot. It has really aggressive percussion and a guitar that's more angry than lively. And simple theme really resonated with me. You just gotta break sometimes. I think that the song is really portraying here that you can do your best to always bring up this image of yourself as someone who is really put together, as someone who is doing so many things, as someone who's very successful, as someone who is always kind, but at the end of the day, you only have so much of yourself to give, and sometimes you just have to break. You have to give yourself a break. You might need to take a break down. Breakdown. But the song, I think, really gives a good message, and a simple one at that, which is just to take that time to yourself when you feel really overwhelmed and allow yourself to not be full all of the time. And now we're getting into the new tracks. All 4 of those were singles. The newest song, and my second favorite off of the album, behind Break, is Dance Class. There are 2 kind of readings of this song that I really resonated with. One of them I think is wrong, but still is a really interesting reading from my first few listens to the song, which is about knowing a person, maybe you've just seen them once or twice, and just fantasizing about how you could meet them for the first time. Someone that you're romantically interested in, you could think, oh man, I want to meet them in a slow dance. I want to meet them to dare and go across the room and start a conversation with them. Both lines from the chorus. And I think that it's really beautiful to think about how a lot of times I catch myself seeing someone and imagining so much in the future with that person, but you still have to make it past that first step. And I think that that first step, as exemplified in the song, is really the hardest part. So that was the reading that I think is really beautiful, but the more times that I listened to the song, it was more so about, I think, the second part of the description that I had there, which is just getting up the courage to talk to a person for the first time. Someone that you might know, someone that you might be romantically interested in, or someone that you just admire. Someone that you maybe know that you know of but don't know personally. And I think that getting past that first step is really tough, and so I'm glad that the song talks about that. And then lastly, our last song on the show, Premier Inn. Premier Inn, last song of the EP. I think that it's a really beautiful one because they gave a little bit of insight to this one on their Instagram and how it was about on their UK tour. They always stayed at a Premier Inn. And if you don't know, Premier Inn is a very big hotel chain in the UK, and they have one in almost every town. And so they just talk about how it was kind of a safe place for them when they were all the way out in the UK, far away from home. Overall, I think that this album does an absolutely great job keeping up the Good Kid song, the Good Kid sound that I fell in love with so long ago. And I can't wait for Good Kid to come to Austin in about 2 weeks. With that being said, let's send it back to the hosts.